Man is fond of counting his troubles, but not his joys. And so we go and continue here with another daily Kaupenjoe, where I talk for 10 minutes without any interruptions and just let it run without any edits. And after 10 minutes, we're going to cut it off. So yeah, today I was thinking about a combination of a few things. Number one thing would be happiness, just sort of in general. And I find it an interesting thing to contemplate, because when I think about things I ought to do, right? I'm going to try to speak a little bit more carefully, or I'm going to try to use my words a little bit more carefully. So things that I ought to do. So what should I, or no, it's not should. What am I ought to do? Well, let's say I ought to do laundry, right? Because, I mean, I think that I don't need to go through the logic chain, although I could. I have dirty clothes. More dirty clothes will be added. At some point, there are no more clean clothes, and I'm not going to wear dirty clothes outside. I think that's the logic steps that we need. Now, I guess you could drill down more, and you could sort of make this like infinite recursion of why. Like, why? Well, why do you not wear dirty clothes outside? Well, I mean, we can even ask like, what is a dirty? What are dirty clothes? Right? Is a jeans that I've worn for a week? Is that dirty? I mean, it might be, or it might not be. It depends on what you're gonna do with it, or what you have done with it. Regardless, though, let's just suppose that is a good thing. So I ought to do that. Okay, maybe I don't feel like it, but I ought to do it. What I find really interesting, I wrote this down, is that anytime I have something that I should have done, or that I was ought to do, every time I delayed a thing that I thought would be bad is not the right word. Work, it's also not the right word. I don't know how to call what to call it. A duty, maybe, but not all duties are bad. But the things that I had to do, a burden is also not the right word. I think burden is too strong. Anytime I delayed something that I thought would not, well, maybe pain is a good one, but it might also be too abstract. So I don't know quite what to call this, what to call these things, like these oughts, right? That we are like, that we should do, or that we ought to do. It's an interesting one. Well, regardless, those things that we ought to do, if I delay them, that usually makes them worse. As in, not specifically there's going to be more dirty clothes piled up, but the badness is almost always in proportion to how long you wait until you engage in this badness. Because these things were never as bad as I thought. And conversely, and this I think is crazier, the stuff that I did to distract myself or to waste time was never as good as I thought. So if there is a mismatch between the, let's say, unhappiness you get from a thing you have to do and the happiness of a thing that you want to do, then what are we even doing here? What is this? Because distractions are not happiness. I do believe that almost anyone can agree with this. Now, sometimes you want to distract yourself, that's fine. But in general, I would hazard to guess that most people will agree scrolling on TikTok or Shorts or Instagram Reels for an hour is very, very seldom a thing that you would conclude as happiness. It might be happiness for the first 5 minutes, and or within the activity itself, there might be small videos, like 1 or 2 videos here or there, that invoke happiness, or maybe the substitute of it. But real happiness, I just do not believe comes from that. And then the question is, where does it come from? I find it quite interesting because I had, almost at this point, I think 3 months back, which is actually quite a bit, 2 or 3 months back, I had sort of a sprint, I would say like 2-week time where I was, I was like hustling like mad. And during that time, you would think, oh, you were working so much, you probably were unhappy. Looking back at it, I really think that I was more happy while I was very preoccupied with things versus when I was just drifting around, almost feel like I'm doing nothing. Or yeah, basically having no single thing to like hold on to. Because if you can do anything, then you're gonna end up doing nothing. Because it's too the possibility space. There's too many roads in front of you, and so instead of choosing one, you're gonna be like, I cannot choose any of them because this is too much. Basically, the paradox of choice, right? If you get 3 ice cream flavors to choose, you're gonna be pretty happy that you've chosen one. If you get 24 ice cream flavors, like barely anyone is gonna be happy with the one that that they chose, because they're like, I could have probably tried that one. Fascinating. That's fascinating. And I think the same thing happens if we're not guided in general in life at all. And if you're like, I don't even know what to do. So that's interesting. And I think that also goes back, because I've said I would have said that I was more happy while I was preoccupied in quite a while, like literally morning until evening, let's say, I was working. That was actually some of the best times. I think rings true once again, the quote from Sigmund Freud: "One day in retrospect, the years of struggle will strike you as the most beautiful." I mean, yes. And I think so. I think it is. And it's not that you shouldn't also take rest, but I think this goes once again of this insistence that you can only have one and not the other. It's this absolute insistence of the or, when it is always and, right? It is never just or. And what that means is that the mean of life, the golden mean, talking back to Aristotle, that's the idea. The idea is not, oh, you hustle until you literally fall asleep of exhaustion. No, of course not. That's ridiculous. There have to be breaks within there. Even if you want to maximize productivity, like even if you're a robot in terms of, you're like, okay, I'm going to shut off all my feelings. If you're like, oh, I just want 100% productivity, even then you need to take a break, because you can't, after 12 hours, you're going to get diminishing returns. Like, you're just going to get slower after those hours continue. So even for that, you would need breaks. So it's a purely rational thing to do, even if it's not even, making you, it would probably make you more miserable as well, but, let's just suppose. But at the same time, let's say complete laziness also gets you, further away from the goals, because it's not, even that makes you unhappy. So what am I trying to say here? Like I've always said in these yaps, I'm literally just trying to think out loud. Okay, if I say something profound, then that might just be the blind chicken finding something. Yeah, I'm not sure, but what I'm trying to say is that I think the things you have to do, the things you ought to do, the duties, if you just try to do those do it for a week, and then compare it. If you let all of those just like lay down there, maybe you have done this, or maybe you're procrastinating on a couple of things. If you're clearing all of those things up, I think at the end of the day, you're going to be happier. So both happier because you've done those things, and also just in general happier, and also life's just better because they have been done, right? Fascinating thing to ponder. But yeah, that's sort of a little bit of a few thoughts on happiness and doing what we ought to do. Well, that's going to be it for today. Hope to talk to you again tomorrow. Until then.